What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Ear Hustling Podcast. Of course, you know the players. James and Prince. What's up, P? What's going on with you?
Hey, what's happening? Another great day, another great day.
This is true. Well, listen, I'm definitely looking forward to this episode. We got the one and only, the executive producer of the Ear Hustling Podcast. Also, my wife, your mom. We kind of
My
know her.
creator.
Your creator, yes,
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 yes.
she's on the show and she's doing split duties today. She's still doing executive producer duties, and she's also a guest on the show. So definitely looking forward to talking to her. And as you all know, we're going to talk about overcoming a traumatic experience. She's got some really um, a really deep story to share that I'm looking forward to. But what you been up to since the last episode?
School, really. School and work. Uh, Busy with my classes. They're kind of going full into it now. Luckily, a lot of them are online. So I've been able to manage it that way. Other than that, just building the best fantasy football team to ever walk the face of the planet. So
Well, first of all, I want to know, how do they have pole dancing class online? First of all.
the same way we're having this podcast, you just set up a little Zoom, give you instructions. You see someone else do it, and you try it out. Actually, if I turned the camera a little bit farther over to the left, you'd see the pole. But no,
Oh,
that's a
well,
different podcast. Different podcast.
yeah, different episode. That if you do that, I would have to overcome a traumatic experience.
Right.
And as far as fantasy football, I don't know if you saw the grades, but we both tied with an A minus. Um, we both got the highest grades, and someone who took Tom Brady #1 overall got a D.
Yeah, it was a interesting choice. I'll
Tom
leave it at
Brady
that.
over #1
It was an
overall, but
interesting choice.
yeah. So it looks like the one and only has turned off her executive producer hat, took the hat off, and now she's guest. Shay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is your second time this season in just 7 episodes. So we want to thank you for gracing us with your presence.
You're welcome. I feel like I've been sharing a lot lately.
You have. And for that, I am very proud of you. For those of you who don't really know Shay, she is a very private person. So as Princeton laughs,
Except for the pictures and videos I like to share on my own Facebook page.
yeah, yeah. And you should go follow her at, no, I'm just kidding.
No,
Anyway.
you should
Uh,
not.
anyway, so we have a wonderful show lined up. We normally try to keep the episode to around an hour, but I believe that this one may be going a little bit longer. We got
Definitely
some eyes, peeking in. Miss Johnny Pete, so she's on. Welcome, Johnny, to the show. Thanks for tuning in. So Shay, let's jump right on in. Um, it was a February evening, February 2nd, 2021. I worked from home that day. I can't remember if you was working from home still at that point or if you were back to work. Um, but um, it started out an ordinary evening, but it quickly turned. Why don't you tell the people, start out there by telling the people what happened on that evening? And for everyone listening, this is the first time that Shay has ever shared this story publicly. She has shared some of the story to family and friends, but to be quite honest, only her and I know every single detail that has gone on during this time, and she's brave enough to come on and share the story with you all. So, Shay, floor is yours.
Before I get started, do you want to give some type of trigger warning?
You know what? I think you just did, but I think that's a good idea. Shay is going to go really deep in this, and it may be a trigger. Definitely want to issue a trigger warning. She may say some things that may trigger some thoughts, but feel free to, listen. She has a great ending. but anyway, Shay.
Mhm. So it was a Tuesday, and I was off work because it was evening. And James, if I forget anything or Princeton, please feel free to jump in and help me out.
Will do.
So we were sitting in the living room. For those who don't know, James and I lived in a high-rise apartment in Midtown, and that'll be a little important as I share the details. So we were sitting on the living room, and James and I were just having a deep discussion about life. That's all I can remember. I just remember we were into this discussion, and as we were sitting there, I started to feel pressure in my head, and something immediately told me like I didn't just have a headache. I felt like something was wrong, to the point where am I having an aneurysm? Am I having a stroke, heart attack? What's going on? So I honestly thought maybe I'm dropping dead. I didn't know. So my response to that was to jump up. And I think because I was in the mindset of thinking about a heart attack, I'm thinking, oh no, if it's a heart attack, just to be prepared, I need to get some aspirin or something. Do you remember me running around? Like I was like all over the place. I was panicked. So I ran into our bathroom, and I didn't know, I don't know, at that moment I didn't even know if we had aspirin. So the closest thing I could find was Excedrin. I grabbed some Excedrin, took that, but that obviously it's not going to work right away, even if it did do anything. But I was like, James, something is wrong. You looked panicked. You looked at me, and I was like, something is off here. I'm in trouble. I need to get to the doctor. So, is there anything you want to share? Do you want me to just keep going?
Well, and you kind of touched on this, but when you felt that feeling, where did your mind go? I mean, you mentioned aneurysm, stroke, heart attack. Had you ever felt anything like that before?
No, no, I thought I was going to die. I thought I
So
was dying.
in that immediate moment, you thought you were going to die.
Yeah. So my body just went into action. And again, I told you something was wrong. I said, we need to go. I don't know what we grabbed. We ran out of our apartment. We were on the 8th floor, and we took the elevator down. And yeah, from there, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, yeah. So it was a little decent walk to the elevator, nothing substantial, but we walked to the elevator, waited on the elevator, got on the elevator. It was just the two of us. You were in pain. We got off the elevator, went out a couple of doors, and there was a bench there, and it kind of wants you to pick up. Matter of fact, before you do pick up from there, you were screaming in pain. You at this point, you were yelling, you were screaming, and there was people, there was other residents around, there was guests around. What were
Mhm.
your thoughts during that time? Did you even care about them, or pick up from there and continue?
So going back to when we got on the elevator, at first when we went down to the main floor, I wasn't in pain yet. What ended up happening, I was trying to make it to the parking lot so that we could jump in the car and get to Emory Hospital, which was about 5 minutes away. But I stopped at a bench in the lobby because my legs started to get really heavy, and I lost the use of my legs. I couldn't take another step. And all of a sudden I had an instant pain in my back, worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I've never felt anything like this. To be honest, I didn't really care who was around me. I was aware of people being in the lobby. I was aware of how it might have looked. Some people looked concerned. People were just moving back and forth. I saw all of that, but nothing
Didn't
kind of
matter.
nothing mattered except the
Yeah.
pain I was feeling. And I think at that point I told you, James, you're gonna have to call the ambulance because I can't take another step. I literally I don't like I can't even explain it. My legs just got really, really heavy and stopped working. They would not go another step.
I don't know if you recall, but at that moment, you laid out on the bench, and I was trying to console you. Security came up, and I think he's the one that actually called 911. I don't remember doing it myself, but I could be totally wrong on that. But some dumb person came up to me and was like, "I need to get in. Can you let me in?" Do you remember that by chance?
I remember that. Yeah. I
You're
couldn't even think about it being dumb at the time. I heard it, I processed it, but it didn't matter.
Didn't matter. So at this point, we decided to call 911. And I recall when the ambulance arrived, the security guard waited downstairs to let them in. It seemed
Mhm.
like it was a forever for them to get there. They finally arrived. Those of you who are local to Atlanta, and mainly those who are not, the ambulance that came was Grady Ambulance. And I remember, first of all, I was so worried about Shay in this moment, had no idea what was going on with her, was so concerned, was so scared. And then Grady Ambulance pulled up. And let's talk about Grady for a second, and not to put them out there, but Shay and I have had these conversations for years. Grady, they're either really good or really bad. You can go in with a stomach ache and come out healed, or you can come out with your left leg amputated. One or the other. It's no in between. And when I saw Grady Ambulance, I was really scared, like, oh my God, I hope they're not taking her to Grady. I want you to, go somewhere else. And luckily they did ask you where you
Mhm.
wanted to go. But talk to us about that experience when the ambulance got there based off what you remember.
Okay, so I remember the EMTs trying to diagnose me. I
Hmm.
remember telling me this is more than likely something dealing with a nerve or something, a pinched
Pinched
nerve.
nerve. Yep.
I dealt with
Mm-hmm.
nerve before, so I was aware of what that was, but I don't know if I really bought that or not. But I mean, I was again in so much pain. I'm just letting them talk. They could think whatever they wanted. Just get me out of here. That's where my mind was. So then they took me away in the ambulance.
So before we get too far ahead there, I remember them putting you in an ambulance. I remember asking, "Can I go with you?" And this is during the height of COVID. I
Mhm.
couldn't go with you, and I remember just really being once again so afraid. Um, I didn't want to lose my best friend, and I remember, you saying things like you actually told me at that time you think you're about to die, and you saying things like that, and I had no clue if
Yeah.
I remember seeing the ambulance pull away and wondering if I was going to see you again. It was really scary, and I felt so helpless myself because there was nothing I can do for you. There was nothing I couldn't go with you. And I just remember seeing the ambulance pull away with you. So they took you to Emory Hospital. Um, what you got to the hospital? What happened from there?
Okay. So first off, I was scared too. When I got in the ambulance, I was in pain, but I was really scared. I didn't think I was coming back home. When I got to Emory, for anybody who's been in the ER, you know how numb they can be to, I guess, people going through traumatic experiences or just not, they might not even know what's going on. But I almost feel like if you come in the ER and you're like writhing in pain and making a big scene or noises, they almost ignore you more. So they set me in the lobby and it was tough. I was in the most pain I'd ever experienced. And the ER staff basically they were just walking around like normal. And I understand because they had a job to do. Um, Nobody came to really, they asked me what I was there for, but nobody came to really check um, on me and say, hey, what's going on? As a matter of fact, I think they had me in a room or they had me somewhere at first. I remember the lobby, but I'm thinking back on this, like, wait a minute, why would the ambulance bring me in and I go to the lobby? But that's what I remember of it. No matter where I was, if they had me in a room or in a lobby, they were ignoring me.
And
It was
everything was being downplayed at that time. The paramedics are talking about pinched nerve, and so it was just really
yeah.
being downplayed.
Thank you for bringing that up because that's an important point. Because the paramedics tried to diagnose me, they said something to the staff in the ER where I think it made them, and I can't say with certainty, but I almost think it made them ignore what I was going through more, thinking maybe it is a picture. They were just kind of listening to them, not really seeing what was going on with me.
Right. So while they ended up admitting you to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they ended up finding some other diagnosis that came up before they even diagnosed you what's going on with your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. What type of diagnosis did they give you that you were unaware of?
Mm. So, can we touch on that like after we talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
yeah, I'll come
Sure.
back.
Okay.
I'll
All right.
definitely bring that up.
All right. So what were the doctors telling you about the pain in your back? What's kind of walk us through that as well?
First off, I want to kind of elaborate a little more on the ER experience. I was in so much pain that I could not get into any position to alleviate the pain. So no matter if I was sitting up, late, I was in a wheelchair, but I could not find any comfort. I had a nurse in the ER that was, I don't want to call her cruel, but she wasn't exactly being nice. Um, I couldn't walk, and I finally found comfort in one position. And she looked at me and told me, you need to get into this bed, or we're not going to be able to help you or treat you or something to that effect. And I looked at her and I said, I said, I understand. I said, but this is the only position where I'm feeling just a little bit of relief. And I pleaded with her. She said, no, you need to get up here. Another situation with the same nurse, I had to go to the restroom. I could not walk again. She wheeled me to the door of the restroom and told me that she could not go in to help me. This will all mean more, I guess, when you find out what was really going on. But it was basically I can't walk and I have to figure out how to use the restroom. So I just wanted to bring that up before we moved forward. I did end up getting admitted into the hospital. And I want to point out too that although the treatment I received in the ER I didn't feel was so great, the treatment I received from the nurses and staff when I was admitted was phenomenal. So I was admitted and they had to do, I can't remember which scans they did first. Maybe it was CT scans, or I think a CT scan came first. And I couldn't even get in proper positions to even have the scans. Like they were having to prop pillows under my legs, and it was extremely difficult. And I'm sorry, I think I'm rambling on. So
No, you're
bring
fine.
back to the question. You wanted me to keep going on
No,
what?
well, you know what? We were actually going to talk about the difficulties that you had in the scans and getting
Yeah.
in positions and all that. So that's what you're touching on now. So continue on that and talk about the results of the scans and how you felt about that.
Okay. So the scans did not all happen in one day. I don't believe. I believe it was like 2 or 3 days.
Hmm.
Is that would you
That's
remember?
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ultimately, when the scan came back, I want to say it was on a Friday. It was on a like I want to say a Friday or something because it really sucked hearing what was wrong and it being a weekend or something, and I couldn't do anything. That's what I remember. I could be off a little bit, but they came back and they said we see something on the scan touching your spine, but we need to do more scans to basically see what it was. Well, I think that's when the MRI happened. They had the MRI. They came back and they said we see a mass on your spine. You have a mass. Of course, I'm thinking, wow, I have cancer? I have a mass on my spine. And they said, we see it and we're prepared to pretty much give you a surgery tomorrow morning. That's basically what they said to me.
And all this time, just to continue painting the picture for everyone, you were alone. COVID didn't allow you to have any visitors.
Yeah,
You had to hear this news without support from your family.
yeah.
You had to. I was able to be on the phone, but that was really it.
Hmm.
Um, so, what was next? That based off what you recall.
Um, so I remember, okay, so getting into the part about me being alone, I remember I had my cell phone and that was my only friend. I did not look at TV. I wasn't in the mood for that. I was pretty much just using my phone to, I think, play games or whatever. And I just, some kind of way, I was okay. I just heard like the worst news ever. I had time to think, man, this is not what I had planned. Am I going to, am I going to die young? I had time to think about, wow, I'm really not going to be a grandmother. Things like that. Like, man, that's messed up. But some kind of way, it was some type of comfort still over me where even though I just heard that I had a mass touching my spine, that I I'd already kind of accepted, like, wow, that's messed up. I was not panicked or anything. I was sad. I was disappointed about it, but I was still also being patient for them to get more information on it.
Before we continue, I do want to point out to everyone, if you're hearing any sort of sound effects, we have a bulldog, as many of you know, and she's in the same room as Shay. She's kind of acting as an emotional support animal right now. She just didn't get the memo and she's sleeping. So that's her snoring. If you guys hearing that noise in the background, I hear it loud and clear.
Okay.
Uh, all right. So continue on. So we got the scans. They're talking about it's a mass. Continue on from there. What was next in the next steps?
Um, I think um at some point the doctors they kept coming down to check my movement, my motion, and my legs. They would say things like, "Can you feel your toes? Can you move your toes?" Thankfully, I could. Oh, I missed something I want to bring up. At one point in the ER, before I was admitted, out of nowhere, I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. I
Mm.
I lost my feeling below my waist. But because my pain was so great, I couldn't even be concerned with it. I did feel like, man, I am screwed. Like I am in bad shape. But I also felt like I'll have to worry about this later because nothing mattered. Nothing seems to matter when you're in too much pain. So I'm sorry, bring me back so I can continue on. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah. You were talking about the next steps after the mass was seen and further testing that was done, and when the actual diagnosis came into play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yeah, so the doctors did come in, like I said, and they were checking me. And I think the head of neurology department came in along with another doctor. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is really bad. I mean, like the head surgeon
The chief
and
of neurology of Emory Hospital, which is a huge hospital here in Atlanta,
yeah,
top of the line. People go there for all types of. Matter of fact, Emory was the first hospital, if memory serves correct, that cured someone with was it Ebola?
I believe so.
yeah.
So this is a big hospital, and the chief and that was going to be my next thing. 'Cause I couldn't remember when he came into play, but the chief of neurology came to talk to you and preparing you for surgery.
Hmm. Some of my timelines could be kind of off, like during the hospital, because so much was going on. But he came to me and he also started to ask me to move my feet, to move my legs, things like that. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, what is going on? And they were talking to me about surgery. But they ended up finding out that it was actually a blood clot that was pressed up against my spine. So that's what had caused all of the problems. It wasn't a mass. It ended up being a blood clot.
And just to kind of back up and by no means not make this about me at all, but I remember when you disclosed to me what the doctor said that it was a mass. When you hear mass, like you mentioned, you think about cancer.
Mhm.
And less than 2 years before that, a year and a half or so, I lost my mom, from cancer. So just the fears of you not coming home and then hearing mass and thinking cancer, that was just very, very challenging, and something we pride ourselves on, Shay, is, um, and one of the reasons why I think we've been so successful in our marriage is we don't talk to outsiders. And when I say outsiders, outside of our house, right? And it was lonely, right? It was lonely just going through that. I couldn't be there for you. There wasn't much support there for me, because you are my support, right? We support each other, and it was a challenge. It really was.
Mhm.
So you get this honestly is the best news, right? This the best news that it's a blood clot, it's not a mass, less serious, no need to do surgery. But I recall the surgeon telling you, if we have to do surgery, we will. So
Exactly. Yeah.
they told you that, remember?
Yeah. And honestly, a blood clot is still scary to hear.
It
Hmm.
is.
When typically when you hear about people getting blood clots, it's traveling and going to their lungs or hearts, and they like die shortly after. So that also wasn't good to hear. Like, okay, I have a blood clot. Excuse me. So
Right.
that was still that that felt horrible. Just
Right.
wondering. And he said, really the reason for so much pain is because it was touching up against my spine. I don't want to recall this the wrong way and give misinformation. I want to say he said something like people get clots sometimes and they will burst in your body and you not even know about it. But because this clot was in the location it was, I was going to know about it.
Yeah.
Basically,
And
that's
and
what I remember.
that you're absolutely right. And he also said, because I remember you asking or about it traveling, and he said
Yeah,
no because it wasn't in your bloodline.
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it wasn't at risk of it traveling. But of course, when you hear a blood clot, you think that.
Yeah.
Um, so I recall, a couple people I was talking to and getting, giving them some information and keeping them abreast. Auntie, for example, and cousin Jimmy,
Mm.
family doctor, and
Big thank you to cousin Jimmy right here,
yeah.
right now. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, of course, like you said, we lived in a high rise in Midtown, the hospital 5 minutes away. From our window, from our dining room window, and from our bedroom window, we could see Emory.
Mhm.
And I just recall just the closest I can get to you was by standing at our window, looking out the window and seeing the building that you're in. And just a quick story, Jimmy told me, he said, I told him that, like that's all I can do. And he was like, what do you like to do at home? And I was like, well, on a normal day. And I said, play video games. He was like, stop looking out the window, go play yourself a video game and relax. Nothing you could really do. So we got off the phone and I went and played, as Princeton would know this and can relate. I played Call of Duty. I wasn't connected. I stopped playing the game, went back to the window. That's all I could do. Um, do you have anything else you want to talk about while you were in the hospital, or do you want to move on to the
Oh,
next chapter?
you wanted to ask me about other diagnosis I received.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So, unbeknownst to me, they came to me and said while I was in the hospital that my blood sugar was high. It was like over 250 or something. And they started giving me insulin. And then they started giving me information on type 2 diabetes. And I'm just thinking like, what? Like, are you kidding me? Like I have a blood clot and I have type 2 diabetes now? Like I had no idea.
I was just gonna ask. So, did you even know that you were type 2 diabetic at that point.
No, no, no. And then I had a special hospital diet for a type 2 diabetic, along with education on diabetes and things like this. So I'm bringing this all up just to say it was a lot. Um, just learning that at the same time that I'm learning about the blood clot.
Now, you mentioned it was over a 250. Enlighten our audience, if you recall, what a normal non-diabetic blood sugar should be.
Ew. In the mornings, non-diabetic, I believe your blood sugar at resting would be under 100. And for someone maybe 2 hours after eating, maybe 140 or lower would be okay for a normal person. And for a diabetic person, um, after eating something, I want to say maybe under 180. And if I'm saying anything wrong and anyone knows for sure, feel free to correct me.
And you were at a 250.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, I have a question regarding that. Did
Mhm.
they tell you, or did you know, were any of these things, were they related? Were they caused by maybe something previously happening, or were they just literally all just unrelated things happening at the same time?
To my knowledge, it was unrelated. And that was the scary thing is they really could not tell me how I might have gotten a blood clot. So I basically, I know, I mean, I know how I got type 2 diabetes from eating. So that, but I didn't know or wasn't told if they were related at all. So but I basically left um, the hospital not knowing, why I had a blood clot. If that could happen again, if I don't know if I was gonna have a blood clot indefinitely. They did no, they did tell me that the blood clot would actually absorb, I think, back into my body. Do you remember something like that?
I do.
But to be honest, I was still scared. Like when? Like when can I have
Mhm.
another test? So that are you guys gonna watch it? I'm just thinking all this stuff. Like, how do I, how do I know that I'm going to be okay? That's how I left.
No. So you came home, and crazy enough, this is where, excuse my language, the shit really begins to hit the fan. Little did we know, I'll be honest, when I picked you up from the hospital, I truly thought, whew, she's okay now. And now it's just a matter of watching this blood clot, making sure that it shrinks and it does absorb medication, trusting the system, all of that good stuff. But unbeknownst to us, it really is just starting. So, what was it like when you first came home?
Mm, I was kind of sad. I felt like I went into the hospital and before this whole incident, everything was normal, quote unquote normal. But then I leave, I can't, it's a whole list of things I can't eat. I still have a blood clot and it was scary. I had a lot of physical pain too. I don't know if you remember that. Like I had so many things out of whack in my blood work. My potassium was low. Um, my neck was cramped up. It was like I had pain. They gave me I can't think of, do you remember what that little breathing thing, the thing that you practice your breathing, you
Mm-hmm.
blow into it or something
Yeah.
or inhale or something like that. So
You
I had
inhale and ball goes up.
yeah, I I didn't walk basically the whole time I was in there until like when the pain got a little better, maybe the day before or so. Cause yeah, they had physical therapy come and I had to walk with them and I had a walker and so I was in a lot of pain still. I was short of breath. Um eh,
Isn't that when you had didn't we have a wheelchair as well? I could be totally wrong, but didn't
yeah.
one get
Had
delivered?
a wheelchair because of living in a high rise apartment. So I'm like in this wheelchair. I could walk, but I was in bad shape. I felt horrible.
We got the wheelchair. They wouldn't even let you come home until you had the wheelchair. It was delivered. We got on the phone and rushing that, and it got delivered. It got delivered to the hospital, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and was able to bring you home. And let the record say that was the one and only time we rented the wheelchair. That was the one and only time you used it. So tough girl yourself. Um, so what was the days like? How did they begin? How did they end? Walk us through that next couple of days.
So at first, I was just happy to be back and I was relieved. Um, I don't think I realized just, I don't know, I never experienced a situation dealing with trauma. So I didn't realize the effects of it right away. I was more having physical pain and stuff like that. Um, the days were, I don't know, I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like myself. But all of a sudden, I started experiencing anxiety. I don't know if it was because I returned to the scene of the crime or what. I had pretty much regular anxiety attacks that I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on.
I'll be transparent with everyone. We talked, several times talking about this show, what we're going to bring up, how we're going to discuss it, how we're going to present it. And this is something we did not mention. So hopefully you're okay with me sharing.
Mhm.
I remember February 16th, we were having the family put together a game night on Zoom in honor of grandma. The idea was, she always loved to party, and the family was going to come together, and we was going to have a game night. And why don't you tell the people what happened at that time?
Well, it was virtual, and while we were sitting there, we were answering trivia questions, and I I was participating, and all of a sudden, my chest started to get tight. And I started feeling like, oh no, something else is wrong. What is going on? I told James, I was trying to give it time. I was trying to be patient. I didn't want to run out of there like we did before. I think we even we kept on camera, didn't we? We turned our cameras off, but we stayed logged in to the thing. I didn't want my family to really know anything was wrong. But I said, James, I think I'm having a heart attack. My chest is so tight. Um, I said, get me to the ER.
And we went downstairs, got in the car, and we fled to Emory. I still wasn't able to go into the hospital with you. We're talking about, 2 weeks after you first went to the hospital.
Mhm,
I wasn't able to go in. So I dropped you off all I could do, and I
mhm.
came back. Um, and the family was still on Zoom.
Come on, you.
They still was on. Yeah, had no idea what was going on, and I didn't want to get back on, so I remember logging off and shutting the computer down, and talked to a couple people, necessary people, kind of told them, what's going on. I don't remember if I told them every single time you went to the hospital, because there was a lot of hospital visits when you was dealing with the anxiety. For those of you who don't know, anxiety feels like a heart attack. It gives similar symptoms, to a heart attack. And unfortunately, once again, in the emergency room, but you were not given the support that you needed. They did an EKG quickly. I guess they determined, oh, it's not a heart attack, so she's good, but you didn't feel good.
No, I didn't. And I want to share some details about that. Number one, when I asked James to get me to the, thank you, Soleil. Definitely, I just wanted to be able to help somebody. When I told James to get me to the ER, the symptoms that I was feeling, just in case anybody else goes through this, I had pressure in my ears. Like I don't even know what that was about. Pressure in my head. My arms and legs got cold and my chest was tight. So I just felt something was wrong. The heart attack, I thought heart attack because of how tight my chest was. Oh, and my heart was beating out of my chest. which ended up being, I think my heart ended up, I was sitting up in the ER and they have you attached to the monitor. It got up to like 160 beats per minute and I was laying down. So, so I told James on the way to the hospital, go through every light. I knew, you know, the risk. I said, go through every light. I am having a heart attack. And when he got to Emory and let me get out, again, I didn't think I was coming back. I was really sad that time. Sorry. I was really sad that time because I really didn't think I was returning. I went in, they gave me an EKG, and that's when they told me it was anxiety. But I'm thinking, like, what? I have dealt with anxiety before, but nothing like this, nothing on this level. So I'm thinking, like, no, like I'm having a heart attack. I'm looking like, look at the monitor, look at how fast my heart is beating. But they reassured me, you're going to be okay. Unfortunately, anybody who experiences anxiety, who deals with that, you probably have been through an experience of thinking you're going to have a heart attack and ending up in the ER, only really to be told it's nothing that is going to be done for anxiety. So that was really disappointing. Imagine feeling like you are having a heart attack and everybody just walking around normal and treating you like nothing is wrong. I pretty much came back home and I don't remember if they gave me any medicine, or I'm sure they gave me something, whatever it was.
They didn't.
It didn't end up, nothing ended up working, because what ended up happening to me after that day, I started experiencing anxiety at the rate somebody would have contractions. Literally, when I never knew what triggered it, so I did not know how to control it. I didn't know why it was happening. Looking back in hindsight, I'm thinking it's because I had a traumatic experience where I thought I was going to die the day that this all happened. And I think my brain was stuck in like a fight or flight mode. So I just had anxiety attacks. James, we could be in the car. He would try and do things to calm me, take me on a ride, let me get fresh air, stuff like that. And literally anxiety would come back down and then it would start back up and my heart would get like start beating out of my chest and I couldn't go in. I know you recall this. I could not go in any retail stores or anything like that because it also turned into like a social anxiety. I don't have any problems or didn't have any problems prior with going into settings with a lot of people. We walked into a store and it felt unreal.
You asked for the keys.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to go back into the car. I don't know what's going on. Like, I just knew I couldn't handle that type of setting. My anxiety was also to the point where I couldn't take anything that would stimulate me like coffee. I could not play a board game. I had to be cautious of anything that I did, anything that came with any type of possible excitement or emotion, it just triggered me into an anxiety attack. So at that point, I'm like, I'm screwed. Like, this is my new life. It became depression after that. So here I am out of the hospital and thinking I'm going to be getting better. I still have a blood clot. I have type 2 diabetes. And now I'm dealing with constant anxiety attacks. Just happening every 5 minutes, basically. That's what was going on.
Now, in regards to the anxiety and the depression, talk to everyone about what type of help you were able to get when reaching out to your primary care physician.
Oh man, it's tough. Man, I hope any medical professionals are listening. It was so tough. Because I know what feeling normal feels like, I knew that I was not normal. Obviously I wasn't having anxiety attacks. I knew something was wrong. It was obvious that something was wrong. It was to the point I started messaging my doctors, messaging my primary care doctor, messaging any medical professional saying, I think I need to be admitted back into the hospital for additional testing. Something is wrong with me, and I didn't have any medicine in my arsenal, nothing at home that could deal with this. I had nothing, so literally, I just had to endure this throughout the entire day, and I felt like nobody was listening to me or understood. You saw what I was going through, but you did not know how to help me. And it put me in a place of, I got to hopelessness basically. I was scared for myself because I'm thinking, oh, this sucks. I started at that point, the depression started rolling in because this is my new situation and I can't get any help, but I needed help urgently, like yesterday.
Yeah, you made a great point. I didn't know how to help, and um, I've been I've been open on this show talking about my own mental health, and I did not know a thing on how to help. I just wanted to be there for you. I just wanted to help you. I just wanted to fix it, and I couldn't. And that kind of led to a conversation that we briefly recall today. Feel free to talk about that.
Yeah, I basically got to rock bottom where I said I mean I'm hopeless. I broke down into tears and I told James, I said, I feel like at this point, no doctors are listening to me. Nobody is trying to help me. And I physically and mentally, I did not have the strength to go back and forth with doctors and continue. I mean, I said, James, we were both crying. I said, I need you to advocate for me because it made me feel even more hopeless. The way that you looked so sad for me, but it was kind of like it felt like a pat on the head, like, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. But it made it even all the worse. Like not like you were giving up on me, but it made it feel like, man, I'm not getting help. That's how I felt. I felt like I wasn't going to get any help. And to me, that was the saddest thing. That was the saddest thing of it all. I'm not getting help.
And of course, from my perspective, um, you know, I felt like things would have been different under normal times where I can go to the hospital and who knows, maybe I've been put out of the hospital. I don't know, but I feel like things would have been different. And I felt like there wasn't much I could do not being able to be face to face with the medical professionals. um they, it's not like they would talk to me, it's not like they would talk to you. You would just send a message. That's the only access you had. And so I then started messaging through your app, through my chart. It got so intense that I even tracked down a doctor on LinkedIn, because I'm like, he's probably not on Facebook, but on LinkedIn, and sent a message there and try to connect with them there, and just to get help. And finally, we got the doctor to write a prescription. And I recall, and I don't remember the specifics, and we briefly talked about this as well. We went to the pharmacy to pick up the prescription, only to find out that it wasn't at that pharmacy, or the pharmacy had closed or something. And we had to contact the doctor to send it to another pharmacy. You deal with, and I don't know if you care about this, you deal with a insurance company that requires you to go to their clinics. You can't just go to Walgreens or CVS. So we had to go to their facility, and because it was a narcotic, because it was a drug, they couldn't just transfer it over the phone. The doctor actually had to send it to another location. So we had to go to another location to pick it up, and we really did a lot to try to chase down this medicine. But luckily, we were able to finally get it. I recall you not having faith that it was really going to work. You were seeing a therapist, that we've been seeing for a long time, that we have a relationship with. And she told you that it was going to take how long before it started working?
30 days. But going back when the prescription was Ativan, and it's a medicine that's used, I guess, basically if you're dealing with anxiety in the moment to make you feel better in the moment, but it's not like a long-term medicine. As a matter of fact, it's addictive. So it's not something that you want to just, start taking every day. But at that time, that prescription was my lifeline. That looked like, I don't know, just the best thing ever to me. It was the biggest hope that I had. Like, I didn't have a lot of faith in it, but at the same time, what other options? I had nothing else. So I just wanted the medicine if it was going to stop me from having the constant anxiety attacks.
I remember also another memory I have is probably around January. We went to go purchase a new living room set, and we had to change our living room set based off of changed apartments, and our old set just didn't fit, right? So we bought a new living room
Excuse
set.
me 1 second to interrupt. For some reason, my computer is doing something. I'm just gonna stop the camera only briefly just to fix this. I
Okay.
don't
Okay.
I don't want it to conk out.
Okay. So we went to the furniture store and we bought a new living room set. And for those of you who don't know Shay, it does not take a whole lot to make her happy. You can go outside and get a rock and paint it and give it to her, and she would love it. Like it's the best rock anyone's ever can possibly have. So this living room set was something that she loved in the store and was looking forward to taking delivery of it. Unfortunately, because of COVID, because of inventory being low, they weren't able to deliver it until March 13th. Remember that date because that's Detroit date, 313. Anyway, March 13th came. Shay is going through this. She wasn't going through this stuff when we first purchased it. I believe we probably would not have purchased it at the time, just you wouldn't have felt up to it. But March 13th came, and we were looking forward to the delivery for a while, and March 13th came, and what was that like for you?
I had no interest in it. Like you said, we had looked forward to this furniture for 2 months, and it was so disappointing that I pretty much got to a point where depression set in. So I lost all my interest, and the furniture did nothing for me. And that's I don't know if I realized before that point, maybe you do, but I was dealing with depression and anxiety at that point moving forward. I had the Ativan. It was it was okay, but pretty much 30 days. Oh, and that wasn't the 30-day medicine, by the way. The long term, I was prescribed Zoloft, and that's what was supposed to take 4 to 6 weeks to have some type of effect. So that furniture was just one example of just dealing with depression, basically. That I didn't have a desire to do anything I liked. I'm normally the person I could turn on HGTV, watch that all day. I lost the desire to do that. I didn't want to do anything on my phone. I did not want to interact with anybody. And I didn't want to eat. As a matter, I could not eat. I could not eat. I had to force myself to eat an apple. Just because I don't know. It's like something I didn't really have control over. From one day to the next, I could pretty much tell what kind of day I was going to have in the morning. It would rotate. One morning, I could feel in my chest if my chest was tight, and I'm like, I'm experiencing anxiety today. It got to that point. The next day, I would have a low, and I would be depressed. Like, could not do anything, depressed. I started, am I going too far ahead? I'm sorry.
No,
Stop.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
I got to a point where I was just isolating in the bedroom, and I wasn't even like, I was on my phone, but I wasn't even doing anything but like trying to fix myself with the internet. Looking into depression and anxiety groups on Facebook. Something else that we didn't get a chance to share, but James was trying to do things to cheer me up, but he really could not. And dealing with the depression, I don't know, it was more irritating for some reason than helping me. So I wanted to be in groups with people who could relate.
Did
And
those
that was
groups help you?
no, no. I was looking for people who had a similar situation to mine, but that's not what I found. In groups, I found people who were dealing more with long-term depression and anxiety, and because of the things they were saying, and they were hopeless or maybe feeling like giving up, then I was not. I don't know. I felt like I was getting worse. Actually, there was something that I found in one of the groups, like a medical um anxiety or something. It was something, or medical depression, something like that, general something. And it was something where I didn't even know what it was, but afterwards it started having effects on me. Like I was in my own head so much, I started focusing on my breathing. And then I convinced myself, like, I'm not breathing right, and things. So it was just getting worse. I was getting worse. I was at this point on Zoloft, but it was supposed to take 30 days, but every day felt like 30 days. Literally, I would wake up in the morning, and I never wanted to die. As a matter of fact, I wanted to live. But every morning when I would wake up, I would think, damn, I am here again. I felt like I was living the same day over and over. Even though we lived in a beautiful luxury apartment in Midtown, it was nothing luxury feeling about it to me. I looked out at a beautiful view, and I had a disconnection, as if I wasn't, I don't know, in the right body, or I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't my life or something. I just felt disconnected to it all. And I don't know, it all felt odd. I did not feel like myself.
You
And
shared, I'm sorry.
I'll go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
You shared with me before that there was only one thing that you looked forward to. What was that?
Um, Jennifer, you think I said her name now? Well, our therapist that we went to, she shared with me, and I was seeing Jennifer like 2 times a week. It ended up being a third time on Saturdays, basically, because that's when I would get really depressed. And she saw me outside of her hours, but she shared with me that sometimes just having people can have energy and transfer energy, and sometimes just having somebody transfer energy to you and just sit with you is enough. Because you said, in, I want to say, on one of my sessions with her, and you were trying to figure out how to help me, and I didn't really know how to answer that. All I knew was you trying to make me smile and doing things like that was having the opposite effect. It was more getting on my nerves. It actually made me feel worse, because it made me feel like you were really happy and normal and I wasn't. So I felt even more horrible. But what really helped me was just sitting on our that blue furniture that arrived. The furniture I'm sitting on right now, as a matter of fact, me sitting there and just having James next to me to support me. That's what I looked forward to every single evening. My most unfavorite time was waking up in the mornings to kind of relive the same horror every single day of not feeling good. But I looked forward to the evenings when he got off work and he could sit next to me and we could just sit on the couch. I didn't really care what he was doing. He could be watching something, he could be playing. I wasn't doing anything. Honestly, I was really in those groups and things like that. But having that energy next to me, that was the only thing I found comfort in. And thank you so much for that, because it was crucial.
Dang well, you do not have to thank me.
I know,
Not at
but
all.
I don't know if you realize, you do, because I've shared it, just how much that did for me.
Yeah. I remember, just speaking of that blue couch and us sitting together, um, there was something that was planned, kind of around the Ear Hustling podcast. At the time, former co-host Eric was planning to come down for us to celebrate our 50th episode, and we had a kind of a several events planned. and one of the events was that me, him, and a bunch of guys was going to go bowling, and you were telling me to go, but your face didn't say go. Your face said, "I need you." And I stayed back. I didn't go. Everyone went bowling, and we sat on the blue couch together, and just
Mhm.
existed.
Yeah.
So
I felt
I'll think.
guilty about that. I felt really guilty, but at the same time, I was so grateful, and you never seemed upset about that at all.
I wasn't.
And I was scared to be alone. At that point, I don't know if I've been alone. I've been alone in the room because I was isolating, but I hadn't been alone, like alone, and I was fearful.
Yeah. There was, and I'll just be honest. I was fearful for you. You would say things that scared me, but then you also would say things like, "I don't want to die,"
Mhm.
and I wouldn't do things to myself. But you would say
Mhm.
things that made me feel like it was possible.
Do you
And
recall what?
I mean, well, just being depressed, right? And just feeling hopeless. Just it wasn't a good place. And the exact words that you would say, to make me feel that way, I don't recall. I think maybe I suppressed those, but I felt like the only thing that was going to guarantee, hopefully, that you wouldn't try anything was me being present. And not just from the night of bowling, just being present, period. You and I both know, and I thank God often that I have such a understanding supervisor. But there was a lot of time that I didn't work. You mentioned I worked during the day and in the evening was on the couch, but we spent a lot of time during that time just being together and just sitting quiet and still. And yes, me doing stupid things to try to make you smile.
Yeah. So I kept trying to reassure you that I was never going to hurt myself because through this all, I had a desire to live. I had
Yeah.
a desire to have my life back. I just did not believe that it would happen. Um, in therapy sessions, I had to go to therapy. It was so crazy that I was just being told the exact same thing. Basically, every meeting that I had with Jennifer, it was just her reassuring me, trust me, you're going to get through this, you're going to be okay. And I didn't believe it. But he say there's no
No
way.
way I was going to leave you alone.
Yeah, I know, Eric. Thank you. But she pretty much spent every meeting repeating the same thing to me. And that was just reassuring, mainly in the moment. And then after we would get off the phone, I was, kind of feeling hopeless again and thinking like in the groups that I've seen, medicine doesn't work for so many people. Um, I did have a fear of having to take medicine, and if I was going to have to remain on Zoloft like for life, but also at the same time, I was willing to do that because I wanted to be normal. I don't. So yeah, I was. I'm not big on medicine and things like that, but I was willing to do anything. I was that desperate, and I never missed a day of taking my medicine because that's how bad I wanted to um, get help. That's how bad I wanted to get my life back. I never missed my therapy sessions twice a week, and that extra third time on a couple of Saturdays. That was important to me because I was fighting for my mental health. I didn't know if that was my new normal, but I did not want to be in the place that I was in. I was going to have to accept whatever the new normal was. And that was, for me, going to be a better place.
I remember you're absolutely right. You were right on, you're spot on taking your medicine every day. And you did that for a couple months, maybe. And I
I didn't take
remember
it longer than that, but a
maybe
couple
it was
months
longer.
to, yeah, to
Yeah.
work.
But I remember the first time you didn't take it, I was so scared. I was so scared because you start feeling good, and you was feeling good for a while, and you just decided or forgot or whatever it was not to take
Forgot.
it. And I'm like, you didn't take your medicine, you know? And I'm like, oh God, you know, I was just paying attention to you or whatever. And that was a little scary, but but so jumping ahead there, let's bring it back in. What was the turning point for you? What do you feel was the turning point?
Really, when I think, okay, so I left the hospital with the uncertainty that never sat well with me. Um, I think when I went back to have a scan, because he told me I had to come back and get one at Emory in a certain, I think I had it at Emory in a certain amount of time. And when they checked it and they said the blood clot was gone, that, but also I started noticing that I would feel better when I would have conversations with Miss Johnny, if she is listening. Johnny, my sister, Rena, when I would have conversations on the phone with them, that's when I would feel most like myself. And I started to feel somewhat normal again when I forced myself to come out of isolation and interact with you, no matter how hard that was. So pretty much interacting with people and that blood clot being gone, that seemed like that was a turning point.
Two things that I recall just kind of really being the old Shay has returned. It was March 28th. And I don't remember which happened first. I didn't look at Easter date for that year, but March 28th, it was a Sunday morning. Some kind of way we got on the phone with Eric and Johnny,
Mm-hmm.
and they were cutting up, acting silly like Johnny is known to do. And they were talking about their plans for Eric's birthday in May. And they said that they were, here's Johnny just commenting. She's listening. She said it's extremely challenging to push yourself. Johnny,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right on that. But they were talking about Eric's birthday plans, that they were going to Vegas. And you was like, let's go to Vegas. And I'm like, let's go where? Let's do what? And I couldn't, as you mentioned, I couldn't get you to go to the store, so to go to
Mhm.
Vegas was a surprise.
I was
And I
hopeful.
remember, yeah, yeah, and I remember we jumped on and got tickets to go to Vegas, and booked our flight and all of that good stuff. So that was one thing. And you want to say something about that?
Now I was just saying, you got those tickets so quick. I think you
Yeah.
didn't even give me a chance to to
I'm
back
like,
out of
just
it. Like, wait a minute.
no,
But
no, just
I was extremely, where I don't know if you were about to bring this up, I was extremely scared still. I want to say that was that before I knew the blood clot was gone? Because I
no.
was scared to agree. Okay, so maybe that's
It
why I
was
agreed.
gone.
I was feeling so
Yeah.
good it was gone. I was extremely scared to travel when I knew that I had a blood clot, even though he said, oh, because of the location being in your, touching your spine, you don't have to worry about it moving, but still, typically outcomes you've heard with somebody with a blood clot, and
Yeah.
I was not getting in an airplane with that. So
Yeah.
I think when I heard the good news that it was 100% gone, I'm like, yeah, I'll travel. I'll do anything. I was hopeful, but still I was kind of scared. Like, am I really okay to travel? I remember telling you that I'm going to take that Ativan with me,
Yep.
just in case I need to. Because I'm thinking, like, what if I get on the plane and all of a sudden have an anxiety attack? That would not
Right.
that would not be good. And I don't
Yeah.
think you and I mentioned, I don't know if you could go back. I don't think you and I mentioned how many times I went like to the hospital during this time or the urgent care.
We did not mention, but I did look at, as you know, just before we went on, I looked at one of your charts, and we went to urgent care 5 times in a week. That wasn't to mention the ER that was around the corner. Urgent care took a little more effort because it was about 45 minutes away.
Mhm.
So that was, you didn't go there often, even though it was 5 times in 1 week. But easily, I feel safe in saying during this period of time, easily 15, 20
Yeah,
times.
during the time of COVID in
Yeah.
the hospitals, I always had that risk going into the hospitals. One time, it was a guy in front of me on the phone mentioning like COVID and coughing. And I was just so bad off and so desperate. I had to take that chance of
Yeah.
going to the hospital because I felt like if something were to happen, at least I would be in the hospital. It was like the only place where I kind of could control the anxiety or bring it back down.
So I just looked it up. So March 28th was when we booked a trip to Vegas for May. Thanks to the peer pressure from Johnny. I'm gonna blame her, but it was a good blame. The following Sunday was April 4th, and that was Easter Sunday. I just looked it up. We actually made plans. We went to go stay in the mountains. In was it Dahlonega?
Dahlonega, yes, that was life changing for me.
Yeah, we checked in on Sunday,
Yeah.
checked out on Tuesday, and I remember a video and you posted it on Facebook, and um, we were walking up all those stairs, and we were so tired, and you were laughing, and that was just music to my ears, you know. But talk about, you said it was life changing. Talk about that that trip we did.
Um, I started to feel like myself again, and literally everything that Jennifer said would happen. Like it was basically like day 30, and I guess the medicine kicked in or what, and I started to feel normal,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe it because like Jennifer would always tell me, your brain when you're going through anxiety depression will trick you into thinking that you're not going to be okay. So even though I was constantly being reassured, I could have heard that 100 times a day, but I really didn't believe it. But that going to Dahlonega, that was the first time I felt like myself.
So we went Sunday through Tuesday. We came back home, brought our luggage up. We sat at the dining room table. I just loved how you had returned. What did I say to you? Do you recall?
No?
I said, let's go back on vacation.
Yeah.
And we started looking at places to go, and you were game, and we ended up going to Charleston for from Tuesday through Friday.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was life changing, you know,
Mhm.
and you just really seemed like you became you again. Um, so with that being said, we're almost to the end
Okay.
here. But before we close out, a couple things I want you to do. One, prior to this event, Princeton actually asked this question: what caused it? So prior to this event, you had a lot going on. So
Mhm.
this was started February
Yeah.
2021. Talk to us about what went on before, what led up to this time.
Okay. So I doctors never knew why I got a blood clot. Still to this day, I have no idea. As far as the depression and anxiety, um, I believe it was the traumatic experience once again that kind of set my brain into the fight or flight. However, there were a lot of things going on in 2020, obviously for everybody, but I specifically had a lot going on. In March of 2020, I had my first major surgery. Um, and I think around September or so, some of the people connected with me on Facebook might have seen this, but we went out of state on a trip to DC, and not soon after we got there, I got really sick, had to go to the ER, and I had to get an appendectomy. I had to get my appendix removed. Before that, going a little bit back, I had 1 week, and I don't know if my surgery had anything to do with this, but in May of 2020, I had a week. Basically, I couldn't go to sleep for like 4 days straight. Like I was literally not sleeping. So I was dealing with that stuff, and we got past that. My job had changed, and I basically went out because of a surgery. And at the time the pandemic happened. So I really never really returned to work in a normal setting. So my schedule was disrupted. Um, but then I had attended in 2020 like 5 virtual funerals, including my a cousin that's dear to me and was dear to me, and my dad. And my dad was the biggest thing. In October of 2020, James and I received a phone call, basically that my dad was in the hospital. I'm sorry. My dad was in the hospital, and we never looked back. We immediately packed our things. We went to Michigan. It was a hard time for me because from the time we saw him in the hospital, I basically started being his caregiver, and we brought my dad back to Georgia. And in December of 2020, my dad passed away at Emory Hospital. So the same hospital that I had to go to, I had an opportunity to think about that also while I was in the hospital. But I was not, I thought after my dad passed, I could get over it just like anything else. I was so busy focused on being a good caregiver and managing his medications and doing all of it, getting him to dialysis, all this type of stuff, that I really wasn't thinking about myself at all. I was not taking care of myself, whatever that meant. And we were just surviving and trying to adjust to a new life. So I don't know what, I don't know how that played a factor. I don't know if that played a factor. All I know is I had a lot going on in 2020. And not to mention, James and I had come off of a difficult 2019 because my grandmother and his mom passed within a week of each other. And we dealt with his mom being diagnosed with lung cancer and having an 18-month pretty much span of living. So it was tough in 2019, 2020, and then in 2021, everything just hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I know I said a lot.
No, I mean, it's unreal how much that we went through. And the Bible says that God won't give us more than we can bear. And I don't know about you, but I questioned that several times during that span. Do you have the right James Montgomery for real?
Yeah.
And then as I mentioned, after losing my mom and you going through the things you went through, the surgery, not even a year later, just really was troubling, but nevertheless. So before we move on to the final two things, you want to offer some advice? I want to offer some advice. Princeton, do you have anything before we go to this advice?
The only thing I wanted to touch on is a lot of this time I've been listening because a lot of the story, I was around for parts of it, but there were large parts of it that I know you purposely, you felt like you were looking out for me, and there were parts that you didn't want to share with me.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to touch on that. What was like the main reason that you felt like that was something that you needed to keep from me?
Because in my eyes, it's like, this is my baby. And I didn't want you to ever worry about me.
Yeah.
When you would come and visit us in Atlanta, you were coming from Athens. So you had about an hour and a half drive. I never wanted you to have something happen on one of those drives. So, and I just think I thought I was trying to protect you by downplaying things when I saw you.
Well,
I'm going to touch on that real quick. And Prince, I see you want to say something. I apologize. Excuse me for interrupting. This is about to turn into a counseling session. I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree with that decision, but I respected your decision. I didn't agree with it, and this is something that we're going to get into at a later time. But just being transparent at that time, Princeton and I didn't have the greatest relationship at that time. And I struggled because I felt like he should know, because God forbid if something happened, I'm left to try to explain to him why he didn't know.
Yeah.
And I do want to say to everyone, I suggest you kind of, as much as possible, right? In while you were going through that, Shay, you wasn't planning 6 moves ahead. I understand you were dealing with something, right? But I definitely would like to recommend to people to think about that kind of stuff, if you can, because
Yeah.
you can leave people behind. If God forbid it's your time, you can leave people behind in a very difficult, sticky situation.
Mhm.
So sorry, Prince, you were going to say something else.
No, no. I mean, you pretty much you summed it up great. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's definitely. I understand trying to look out for the people that you love, but at the same time, you definitely want to keep everyone in the loop, keep
Yeah.
everyone notified, and I just think of it as kind of put yourself in the shoes of having your parent going through
Yeah.
something. We want to know about that as well. But
Yeah.
I understood what was going on at this time, so I never really held any like contempt or anything. So I
Yeah.
definitely.
I appreciate that. We both know that I had a secretive parent too. So I probably had that talk with him too. I think about
You
uh,
did.
sharing things with me. Then I turn around. I guess you just can't help it. It's genetics.
You can.
But
Yeah.
you turn around and you do that. I did the exact same thing. And that's something I'm regretful for. And if I could do things different, I would do that different.
Yeah. So, Shay, I'm gonna let you have the final word in your advice. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw mine out real quick, and then turn it over to you. One thing I want to share to everyone is when we talk about traumatic experiences and traumatic events, I know people probably don't like being called or put into the box of being a victim. But for a lack of a better word, I'm going to use that. So please excuse me. When you are a victim of a traumatic experience, you have to understand that there's more people that are affected by that traumatic experience besides the victim themselves. There's other people, the loved ones that are in it with them. When Shay and I were going through this, when Shay was going through this, and I was there trying to support her, as I mentioned, I didn't really have anywhere. I didn't have an outlet, and that was troubling. I plead to everyone to find an outlet, to have an outlet, whether it's your therapist, whether it's in this particular case, I think it's okay to go outside of your home to talk to someone. When you're having your normal arguments, we're 19 years in our marriage. When we have our normal arguments, we don't take that outside to family and friends. I think that's a no-no. We agree on that. But when stuff like this, I think it's okay to bring people in, so you can have some support, so you're not carrying that alone. It can be a lot for a person. Yes, Shay was the one that was in the hospital bed and seeing doctors and stuff like that, and feeling like she was going to die, and thank God she didn't. But you definitely need a support. You have to find your blue couch. Shay found hers, and I'm so grateful that I was able to sit on that blue couch with her. But everyone needs an outlet. Everyone needs a blue couch. So please find that, if you find yourself in a situation like this. Shay, what advice do you have?
Okay. So since I'm no medical professional, I I just want people to learn from what I did. So if it's advice, if it's helpful to somebody, these are the things I took some notes on things I felt that I did to fight for my mental health, because I do feel it's important to not just sit back and just let it happen. You have to fight. I had to fight to regain my mental health. Um, letting you know, or letting I let you know just how badly I needed you to advocate for me, that I didn't have the strength to do this for myself. So that was something that I did. And that's when I was first able to get real help with some type of medicine. Um, Continue to reach out to your primary care physician, or any physician that can help you, to explain to them how much you need help. Even when you think that people aren't listening to you, or even when I thought people weren't listening to me, my doctors weren't listening. um, I have like a trail of messages in my account where I was messaging everybody left and right, just trying to fight to get the help that I needed. I never gave up. I was hopeless, but I never stopped trying to fight. Um, Even though meds were something that I never had before, like Zoloft or whatever, antidepressants. Um, I was open to meds. Really, in my situation, I can't say I had much of a choice because of the anxiety, but those meds, I ended up having to take them for like 6 to 9 months, somewhere in there. I'm not on them to this day. And I don't need them to this day. However, if I need them, I would gladly take them again to feel better versus staying in the dark place that I was in. So being open to meds, that's something that helped me. Next, I took my meds consistently. Like James said, I think once I started feeling better about 2 months in, I did miss my meds occasionally, but I would make sure to get right back on. Taking medicine is really hard to stay consistent, but I took that medicine, especially in the beginning, like my life depended on it, because it did. My mental health depended on it. I was just serious that I can't just be crying and asking for help and not doing something, from doing the things and the steps that I've been told to take to regain my mental health. So that was me trying to fight. Um, I worked with my therapist 2 times a week. And like I said, that third time, when needed, she left the door open like, hey, if you need to call me, call me. And I took her up on it. So it felt a little bit weird, like saying that, oh, yeah, I'm going to, I need a session Monday and Thursday. Every week we would schedule it. But uh, my that that was just important as that medicine for me. Without that therapy and without that constant reassurance, I don't know where I would be. I don't know if I would have been able to get by for 30 days waiting on that medicine without that. I don't know. Um, I had to force myself to stop isolating. So I forced myself in situations that I was uncomfortable with. Once was interacting with Eric and James when they went out. We went out to a restaurant or something. That was one of the toughest things I had to do during that time, because I I sat back. I looked around the restaurant and all these people were smiling. They were happy. James and Eric were having a normal conversation. And I felt really alone in that time, because I'm like, wow, it really let me know, man, I'm not normal. It made me feel, I don't know, really different. But putting myself in situations around people, I really say that was the biggest thing to me getting back on track. Like that's when I started to feel like myself. Like I said, those conversations with Johnny, with my sister Rena, that started to help me come back. Um, and reaching out, that's part of the reaching out to friends and the family that I put on my list. Um, and give it time. I had to give it time. I had to just not give up, even when it seemed like that would be maybe the easier route. I just had to fight and do what basically my therapist said, what the psychiatrist said, what the therapist said, and all of that stuff made the big difference. And I think it's the reason why I had a favorable outcome.
Awesome. Shay, thank you so much for sharing. You know, I'm proud of you. I really am. I love you so much. You know, I know I'm not going to speak for Princeton, but I know he does as well. Thank you for being the strong person you are. And last thing I want to say to people, remember, it's okay not to be okay. It really is. So once again, Shay, thank you. Can't wait to come downstairs and be with you. You heard it from our mouths to your ears. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.